Hi guys, welcome to Thoughts with an Accent. My name is Anastasia and here I talk about navigating life between cultures, one story at a time. And today I'm really excited to be trying out a new format. Instead of just me doing it solo, I invited a guest. I would really appreciate it if you show some support. Let me know what you liked about it, maybe what can be improved. I'm really excited, a little bit nervous. Let's jump straight into it. So today with me, I have Carolina, who goes by Keri, from Keri and Accent, a person who is amazingly passionate about finding your identity through voice, a person who gets so excited about experiences one can get from interacting with the world, and it is contagious. I'm sure that a lot of followers of yours can confirm that. So Caroline is also a voice coach, a New York dweller, and we're going to definitely hear more details about that today. So would you like to say just a few words? Like, what is your one-liner? Do you have a one-liner about yourself?
Well, first of all,
putting you on the spot like that.
That's what I'm here for, to be put on it, right? So, I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I feel so honored to be the first person on your interview thingy. And as far as what I am, I guess I always like to think of myself as someone who sells freedom. So basically identity, when you're familiar with it, when you know it's innards, when you know how it works, when you know how to approach it, when you know what you're afraid of in terms of your voice use, and you just you get freer in terms of how you interact with people, yourself, the world, the dwellings that you're finding yourself in. So yeah, if it were to be a one-liner, then yeah, I sell freedom, people. So
I love that. And then again, everybody can find something of their own, when they hear freedom. It means different things, for them. It's very relatable. Amazing. That's great. Also, just to sort of add to this conversation a bit of context of how our paths crossed, because Keri and I both come from TEFL background, teaching English as a foreign language in different countries, different environments, give or take. But if you are somebody who has done that in your life, you know that community is quite tight. Everybody knows everybody, especially with social networks these days. So our paths inevitably crossed, because if you are in TEFL, if you're teaching languages, you kind of you know people. You're always curious about who's doing what. I don't know. Do you still teach English at the moment, or you just focusing on the...
It sometimes still finds me, but
yeah.
But not really, not anymore. I mean, it's still part of what I do, right?
Yeah, fair enough. It's an interesting industry to be in, to be fair. And then when you're trying to kind of explore all the corners, you develop professionally yourself, and then your students as well, they start needing, slightly different things. Again, this is to add to the context. This podcast is called Thoughts with an Accent. You have a podcast that's called Beyond the Accent. There's a lot of accents. I spent quite a long time thinking about what I want to call this podcast, and a lot of good names were already taken. So for me, kind of as a person with an accent, it means that you have changed a place of living. So a person with an accent would be called a person with an accent only if they are not where they grew up, maybe, when they're different, which means they have done, they've been through a particular journey. So to me, that was my thinking. I know that you also think and talk a lot about people's journeys, right? People's journeys in immigration, in, I don't know, any type of exploration, really. So can you please just summarize or outline the map of your own journey as an immigrant?
Well, first of all, I had to literally outline it because I wasn't
good.
Sure
We're a good note. Yes.
So, I never know where to start, like at the end or at the very beginning. A very good place to start from The Sound of Music. So maybe that's where I should go. Well, I was born in Minsk, and it says in all my papers that I'm from Belarus. I grew up in Yekaterinburg. I spent most of my adolescence in Yekaterinburg, a certain portion of my 20s, a very small one, but still. So when I think of my hometown, I think of Yekaterinburg.
Who are not sure what kind of geography we're talking about, Yekaterinburg is a city in the Urals, in the mountains that naturally divide Europe and Asia. Beautiful area, mountainous. Yekaterinburg is one of the biggest cities in the area.
Yeah,
Is that so?
It is.
So yeah,
we you know,
you're a city girl.
And Novosibirsk and Kazan. They all think of themselves as the third after Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Okay. We have quite a few
Yekaterinburg is, of
Yeah,
course, one of
enough.
those, you know, with the third ones. So.
Yep.
But yeah, when Roman and I, my husband and I, had just moved into the United States, and we were incessantly being asked, you know, what's your background, what's your story, and we'd be just like Siberia. No one, one around.
No
us
more
knew.
questions asked.
Exactly. Whoa. Well, that is interesting. You must be tough, and we're like, yeah, that is accurate. So there we are. It's close enough. Close enough.
So is that where you went to uni as well?
It is. It is. It's so weird to me that I never even tried applying for like any program in Moscow. Like I didn't even think in that direction. And if you were to send me, I don't know, time travel me into that same place in that same year, I'd probably be applying to New York or London. Definitely not Yekaterinburg. But you know, yeah, it was more local for me. Yes.
What was your next stop after that?
See, the thing is, prior to me applying to a university back in Yekaterinburg, I did spend 1 year in Massachusetts as an exchange student back in 2005. Right. So I did have that, you know, like I had been to space. But upon my return, I was like, you know what, I want to chill for a bit and just stay local, stay...
Is that what it felt like after a year in the States? You were like, I just want to stay
It was a very
local.
hard year. It was because I was 15 years old, so it's a hard year for anyone, right? It's supposed to be a bit hard.
So you came back. You went to the States, and we'll go back to it a little bit later. Your system was probably shocked, and back then, you know, we were talking mid-noughties. Technologies were different. Lifestyle was different. Communication was different. Life was it almost felt like it's here where you are, right? Rather than now with social media, smartphones, it feels a bit different. So you felt like you wanted to stay where you grew up, and then what? Then what kind of clicked then? You're like, oh, I think I'm ready to move on.
It's like it kind of looks at the immigration process as if it had been a well thought out process for me, and it wasn't. So it wasn't ever. I was very I had been it'd been decided. Like I had no doubts about having to go to the United States again in a whole different status. I wanted to, but as a university student. First of all, I skipped another half a year and I went to Jerusalem, where I was planning on staying forever, for good. I was going to learn way more Hebrew than I ended up doing. And I was going to stay there, but I ended up kind of getting cold feet.
What was your degree in? So that was a linguistics degree.
Practice and theory of translation, right? But it is, you know, it's theoretical linguistics to a huge amount of it. When I was in my fourth year, I met my now husband, and he was looking to get some assistance in getting ready for a couple of tests, GMAT and TOEFL, and that's how we met. And there we were. So a couple weeks in, we moved in together, and we started planning on leaving for the U.S.
Was it the only sort of
Well, first of all, when it comes to to business school, not BA, BS. BS is in there, isn't that funny? Right. So, it's just, that's, like it's a go-to place, right, to get a business education. First of all, it was like an unfinished business for me because this year that I spent there was quite traumatic. I mean, I did fall in love with the American idea. I'm not going to say dream, I guess. It's the idea. It's how people are. It's like 10 things I hate about you. Like, it's the movie type idea. I was in it. I was living it. I was so in it. I had my locker. I had my classmates. I had to like ramble around those classrooms, and I couldn't find anything. So it was very it was just like living the dream for sure as a 15-year-old,
Like
but
you're
there was a lot
in a movie, right?
it felt like being in a movie, right? And I'm a huge cinephile, and it feels great to me to live this cinematographic lifestyle, whatever it is that you make of it, right? So long as you feel like it is, it's cinematic.
It's a good time to sort of ask you whether going abroad or getting international experiences was something that you thought of as a kid, or how did it first come to your mind that I'm going to experience that, I'm going abroad?
That is quite interesting, because when it comes to me and Americanness and the United States per se, Americans, it all started when I was, I want to say, maybe 10, 11 years old. Because I would meet a lot of Americans as a kid back in Ekaterinburg, as my mom was working with Americans. Mm-hmm. She was a translator and an interpreter for whoever had made up their mind to come into Russia and adopt a Russian kid, which was feasible.
Well, it was still possible, yeah.
Exactly, right. And it was for a while, and it was, and I saw a lot of it, the process. I saw the Americans that were like creme de la creme, right? So the kindest, the wealthiest, the whatever, could actually come in and do that and adopt people. Well, yeah, they're people, little people. The Americans for me were like super people, Yeah. Those were the only ones I knew for many years in a row. I did travel quite a lot, I think, starting at the age of 12? And it felt normal to me to travel. Mm-hmm. But we just come into the era of this new wave of consumerism had hit Russia. And I think when I was dreaming of stuff, I was dreaming of stuff and not places that I would go, So I liked the idea of going to a place where I could get the stuff that I wanted, for instance. We thought of things as what would get us the experience. So, in a sense, I was dreaming of the U.S. lifestyle, clothing-wise as well.
Do you feel like, I don't know how to describe it. So if at first it appeared as the beacon for you, and then you started going, well, actually, there is also that side. So it may be one small thing, cool American jeans, or I don't know, Timberland boots. They sort of like, I like that style. And it's like, I want to be like that. And then you start kind of unwrapping it and think, that side is also interesting. Or like, it's maybe I'm overthinking. But like, what was your...
I think just that it's just that, first of all, the beacon was also very much neighboring with my love for languages and my talent for languages, because both my parents were like, I come from a family of translators. So it kind of makes sense for me to take interest, So
it does. It's quite rare though. Like I don't know many people
crazy.
Who would.
Yeah, it's weird. It's the weirdest thing. I do not recommend that. Growing up,
do not recommend having parents who are also into languages. Thanks very much.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, not my parents anyway. Okay. But it depends for sure. So, but I was so into, like, I had this person who was there to signify the beauty of language learning, and that was my teacher of English. She was the dream, and I met her when I was in the 5th grade. Before that, there were classes. I was at the same school. I couldn't make out anything. I was just pretending to understand and to follow what the heck ever was up. It was so badly taught by good people, but badly taught. And once I met her, she was the Cambridge system type person, the immersion type person. She would not speak in Russian to her students in the 5th grade. That was very brave of her, in that day and age.
Yeah.
And of course, it changed me. And she saw something in me. I fell in love with her completely. And of course, English, movies, talk, communication, words, sounds, Americanness, whatever comes with it, the cultural stuff. I was crazy into it, and when you do have that, you have the tools, well, of course you get ever more interested, right? The more words, the more knowledge, the more depth and the more interest. So I always think of Pretty Woman and how many times I watched it and how I would follow the subtitles and so many things I had to they call them phonetic hallucinations, I think, when you don't know a word or an expression, so you hear what you hear because you got to hear something. So
absolutely, and your brain fills in the gaps.
Exactly, it's got to do what it's got to do. As a cognitive specialist, right there, you would know that more than anyone. And the thing is, I remember watching all these movies, and they would always say to one another, "Calm down, calm down," and I always thought that they were asking them to come down, come down. And I honestly thought the metaphor was to you're all the way up there and you need to move all the way down. It was so freaking funny. And it just, again, when you don't know it, you don't know it. It's liberating in a way because you get to just create what the heck ever you feel like.
Yeah. But this is very natural, isn't it? This is almost like the children's way to absorb the environment and the language. Before I got to be fluent in English, the old tape recorders, they would have tapes with some songs in English, and I used to think the phrase "used to be" is one word. No doubt, don't speak by no doubt. It's like you and me, we used to be. And used to be is like.
Was it transliterated in Russian letters?
It was in Russian letters, yes. And back then, we didn't have
the same thing. Oh my god, it's so cool.
And it's a very common. You hear it in a lot of songs, songs. But now, as language specialists, we can say, "Oh, it's a lexical chunk or whatever." It's something like a collocation or a particular grammar form. But back then, it was just whatever you pick out. It's like, I know that word. I like this word. I'm gonna use it as one word.
This is insane. Yeah. And the fact that you hear it the way you hear it again, it's just. Oftentimes I'll listen, whenever I'm working out, I got a couple of playlists, and there's the song that's a gazillion years old, right? The da-da-da-dum, 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 stumble-it-in. And I, of course, hear "Stopolirin," and I swear that's what they're saying. Now that, it's just, well, that's exactly what they're producing, but they might not know it. They might not have been informed, but that is exactly what they're saying, and there's no way to change my mind about that. And we heard it for a reason.
There's a YouTube channel called Avashivos on YouTube. It's called Avashivos. For those who don't speak Russian, it's like a vegetable carrier, like a vegetable vehicle. Avashivos, but it actually is Avashivos. It's like all that she wants. I think it's Ace of Base. Yes, and there's a whole cultural layer built around that. Times when you couldn't check things quickly, now you can speak and any accent can be recognized by a language tool, right? But back then, whatever you hear, whatever you share with your friends, whatever lyrics you find in the paper, it's
and it proved to be helpful.
Very helpful. Yeah.
She's got it. She's gotta. Yeah. Right. That's exactly what it is. And even the sound that we made, I think we were doing the tap, we were actually doing the T that we were supposed to do.
The flap T.
The flap
right
was
there.
It was it. Yeah. We were doing it. The whole
we knew it before it became mainstream.
That they knew it. I mean, how insane is this?
You know how sometimes when you do a particular type of work for a long time, you forget what it's like to be at the very beginning. For example, if you're a language teacher, sometimes you forget what it felt like when you just started. So in this next segment, Keri and I talk about how her perception of language learning, or maybe even language teaching, has changed as a result of her immigration experience. You know, the experience of being an immigrant, the experience of living abroad and centering your life elsewhere. How did that change, if it did, your perception of language learning and, I guess learning rather than teaching, because you put yourself in the shoes of that person, you know, facing,
Absolutely.
I don't know, uncertainty. Yeah, how did it change or shape?
Well, I suppose, of course, it's been changing and shifting. I think it's supposed to. If it doesn't, then you're probably, I don't know, being
Stagnating,
stationary, like move, right? There's got to be a bit of movement to it. Oh yeah, it's changed so much. As a teacher / learner, because just like with the teacher that I've mentioned, I think the whole time that she was teaching me how to learn, she was also teaching me how to teach. So it's like my whole life, languages are about how do you pass that on? How do you get someone else to do it whilst you're still making sense of it yourself, right? And I think that it's definitely shaped, back to what you said, in terms of how you treat uncertainty, but not as a listener necessarily. I think I had that down ever since I was okay with hearing come down instead of calm down, like that. I was fine with that uncertainty. So, but as a talker, as someone who expresses herself, I think I really, well, first of all, I transformed into a like hardcore, diehard descriptivist, right? So I no longer think in prescriptivist. Again, because I specialize in freedom, I want people to have it and to develop it. The idea of getting things right, it had been ruining my life, I think, for a number of years. Because about, being so hyper-focused on getting it right, well, unfortunately, it neighbors with this concept of being afraid to get it wrong.
For those of you who are not familiar with some linguistic terms, descriptivists versus prescriptivists. So descriptivists basically describe, they listen to what people say. Language is a living organism. So they tend to go with the flow. If things change, so be it. Prescriptivists are more sort of saying, here's the rule, follow it. And if you don't, you are wrong. And we're going to use a red pen and correct your errors and not forgive you for that. So that's basically it. So Keri here, she is siding with descriptivists, enjoying the creativity that comes with the language. Well, to be fair, like as a language teacher, when I started living abroad, the first thing that probably jumped out to me is that, when you're trained to be a teacher, again, between right and wrong, you're told, oh, this is the method that works, this is the method that doesn't work. And then when you start doing it yourself, you say, actually, everything works. A lot of things work. And they can work in a combination, they can work separately, they can work, more slowly or faster. It really depends. So I think I started being a lot less strict about what to do, what not to do. But then people, if you work in a particular area, people still like message you and say, oh, what's the right thing to do? Or they say, well, there is no such thing. You just do it.
So I guess that is part of our mission as educators, right? And to entertainer plus educator,
edutainers. Yes, edutainment, isn't it?
Edutainers. Jesus.
I know, right? It's hard, but then again, the creativity with the language. Yeah, we're gonna stay descriptive about it.
It's just it was there. I grabbed it, so there it goes. So it's part of my professional mission and part of my personal ideology to. How shall I put it? To be open to frameworks, to want frameworks, but them frameworks don't have to be rigid, do they? Right? So it's like you got to know the rules to break the rules. So I'm not saying just like know nothing and just go with the flow. Some people are really good at it. Not a lot of them. Like, you got to know your stuff. You got to look into it. You got to pay attention. And you got to develop all sorts of interest towards it for you to want to pay attention.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. I like that. I like that you should sort of know your stuff first before you kind of not derail completely. But I think like paying attention, and it's also, to me personally, paying attention is a sign of respect, whether we're talking about language, whether we're talking about any culture, right? When you move to a different country, noticing stuff, paying attention and taking it on board, then it's a different story what you do with that. But like, first pay attention, okay? Like, don't just butcher everything for the sake of it, but with the language, right? But just, yes, learn it, but then, go wild. So express your identity through that, right? It's quite exciting. In the sort of the international community, like, what sort of community do you surround yourself with?
First of all, the word community used to make me gag. I used to hate it. I don't anymore. I used to hate it for personal reasons. So I just really means to communicate, right? Communal. There's common something. There's rubbing off of each other. And when I had just moved, yes. And the idea of having to share something with somebody, almost like being forced into communication, that I disliked very much as I just moved to the US the second time, right? The first time I also hated it, but I was just a 15-year-old who was, I don't know, not into talking to people. But as a 23-year-old, I was afraid to talk to people for the longest time because there were so many perfectionistic tendencies being actualized in my behaviors, and my mindset was like that. And I hated the idea of having to be around people. And when there's a community, that kind of is part of the deal. You can't just be on your own and be part of a community. Now I'm way more open to it. First of all, because when it's an urban community, that's also different. Like, for instance, Roman and I, we were just staying in a small town, dog sitting and house sitting, so the suburbs. And the idea of living around the same people all year round, knowing their names, and having to say hi.
Does it stress you out?
It does. I'm like, no, thank you. Because the New Yorker in me is like, I'm entitled to not know the names of my neighbors. We'll smile at each other. We'll help each other out. We'll do small talk. We'll talk about our dogs outside, whatever. But the freedom to not know somebody, that is priceless to me.
Okay.
That's just how I've developed into that sort of personality. I don't know. And now, like, I can say that, I got, what Americans will call friends who are part of the same community.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I've only seen them like 4 times and we're friends.
That's right. And we're friends. The Russian word drug, that is kind of translates into friend, but they do not cover the same levels of closeness. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
That, I think, is the hardest thing for me. It was for the longest time. And I'm only now making peace with it, because one of the questions was like, what's the hardest thing?
One of the most common things that people talk about when they talk about immigration is relationships with other people. It's community, friendships. Sometimes we think that we can crack that puzzle in our heads, find new friends, and we think that, it can go quite easily. Whereas in fact, there is a lot of cultural background, a lot of layers of different attitudes, experiences, cultural codes. Let's see what Keri has to say about that.
One of the hardest, most challenging things as an immigrant, I think I put something pretty depressing down, something like friendships not feeling like friendships all the time.
Right. This is interesting. So how many years? Because I know that we're kind of like jumping from your journey to like more
So
depth. So how many years have you now lived in New
I think we
York?
should start in 2013. That'd be fair. And we stuck around for 5 years, Massachusetts, New York, back and forth. Then 2018, we went to London. We stayed there for 4 years. That included the pandemic period,
Yeah.
so it was very weird.
So
half
kind
of
of,
it.
let's say 2 years.
It was
'Cause
odd,
2 years
yeah.
you stayed in your
I was
house.
just not. Yeah, I was there, but London was
Yeah,
not.
not there, yeah.
So, and then 2022, we flew back home. I think of New York
Yeah.
as home now, and so that's what another 3 years. So, almost 10 years in total. Getting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, fair enough. And okay, so friendships are hard and they don't feel like friendships. I personally, like, I didn't really think about, friendships being harder. I just think, well, my kind of thought process, right? Becoming a mum, becoming a parent, creates a whole different layer for me, like layer of identity, responsibility, or whatnot. And I thought, I do have friends, local British friends here, fantastic girls, different journeys. I do have some Russian friends as well. And however well I get on with my British friends, friendships are different. It's hard to explain and not, I don't know, to explain that it's not offending somebody. It's not saying something is, less deep than
Sure. Yeah.
the other type of friendship.
That's
But
really
I
not it,
absolutely
yeah.
get you. Yeah, it's just different. It kind of carries a lot of cultural background with, late night kitchen talks, singing to a guitar, discussing things with somebody who you see maybe for the third time, but you can actually connect if it clicks, and you can talk, I don't know, you can talk philosophy, you can talk trauma. I don't know how to explain that to an average British person. I'm not saying that it's not relatable for British people, but it wouldn't be for a lot. Whereas, for Eastern European, Slavic background, that would be one of the, I guess, reasons to connect. And that's why friendships, they do feel different, like, I don't know. It could be a generational thing. Do you have like a circle of people that you are surrounded with more or less regularly? And
I'm working on
what's
it.
the background?
I think I got a bunch of circles. That's the thing. That's the thing when you immigrate. You no longer get to have one circle. I mean, it's not like it's okay. It will also pertain to anyone who is in their home country and they've never left. It happens with age, right? There's things just kind of you shuffle them around, and you configure different bits in different ways, and it makes sense. But here it's like 10 times as hard or something. And like, again, not as in it's so hard on me, help, but as in it's so much work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a lot of navigating, it's a lot of looking, it's a lot of assessing of what it feels like and where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what your take on this was, because I was like randomly browsing through Instagram, and I ran into a reel of some girl who lives in Portugal, but she's originally from Belarus or Russia, or a little bit of everything all rolled into one. But she said something like, they have to make like a bold statement for someone to pay attention to the reel. It said something along the lines of, if you are in, say you are a Russian in Portugal, the Portuguese folk are not going to get you. The Russian folk who still are back home in Russia are not going to get you. But the folk who's also immigrated from Russia into Portugal, they're the only ones who are actually going to get you more or less in terms of what you're going through. And it's like, okay, that's a bit, I don't want to say simplistic. There's a lot of truth to it. What's the word for it? Well, it's just coming up with a framework, right? The Portugal folk, well, they're different. And it's going to take you years to gain some sort of proximity, closeness. Yeah. And with the people who are back home, that I totally agree on. They will never understand because they just don't know what it's like, and it's
They haven't
really
walked
hard
the
to
walk.
imagine. Yeah, or they aren't even, some of them won't even talk the talk, they're so not into it. They're so very it's so alien to them, the idea of doing it in the first place.
Which is fair enough. I do respect people who stay local their whole life, because that's how places actually get their soul.
Oh,
Like if we all move around, there is no groundness, to places, because you go to a place, you do want to feel some sort of authenticity. And I do believe that it's people who never moved that bring that authenticity to the place, and it matters.
Unless it's something like New York or London or LA.
Even London, everybody wants to meet a Londoner there, right? So that they
well,
could
they're
connect
not
with
there
some
no
sort of
more. There's no such thing.
But that's the thing. Everybody's hopping. It is shifting. But I personally,
I know what you mean.
do value authenticity in places, and only people who never move, who are generationally live somewhere, they bring that to places. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. And regarding friendships, people who are immigrants from your home country, on the surface, I wouldn't agree with that only they are the ones who understand you. First of all,
they're so different.
Oh yes, everybody has a different experience with immigration as well. Some people are like constant complainers, which
that's a whole of Israel. That's all there. We complain the first 3 years.
Yeah, well, it can be sort of the national idea. But you know what I mean, though, right? It's like somebody who can't quite settle, somebody who is settled very much, and they're very aggressive and protective over the host country. They would be like, go home if you don't like something, like a tiny thing you're not happy with, not happy about healthcare, go back home. They're very aggressive. So based on that, I'm not sure that automatically that makes us friends. You know what I mean? It's it really depends. Really depends. But that's another thing I want to ask you, from your observation. What kind of immigrants have you?
We were getting to that. Let's see. So first of all, okay, I'll tell you what I put down, and then we can work it out. I need your help working it out, honestly, to classify. So first of all,
the framework.
Yes, let's come up with a framework. Why won't we? The one that's a bit more sophisticated than just 1, 2, 3. This works, this doesn't work, and this might work. So let's get deeper with it. So first of all, I put down the word expats, because that's the word that I say so much on my Instagram page, in talking to people about Roman and me and who we were for the longest time, because we weren't immigrants.
Yeah,
we weren't.
But expat
students.
Is somebody who's moving for a limited amount of time. Is that
not necessarily, not anymore? So when I was doing that's the thing. It's like it shifts a little bit. It has been evolving, the term and the concept. It's growing, because it's now really truly normal to find yourself being an expatriate, so someone who actually finds themselves outside of their home, and they're not really planning on going home anytime soon. So I think the classic description to it was something like, you just come in to, say, Singapore from England, and you stay there for a number of years. You work for a company to get promoted, whatnot, and then you go back home or something. So, but also it's just X as in outside, and patriot as in home country, homeland, Rodina, в конце концов, motherland, babies, right? So, and therefore, it's just the idea of being away from where you were born or where you grew up, first and foremost. And I think it's just like a sort of an intermediary stage and whatnot between, I'm just here for the time being, and you know what, I'm going to live in this country, I'm going to be a permanent resident, or this is where I want to settle. So to me, I think expats, they're shifters. They're like moving around. They're not staying in one place, because a lot of people who work in another country will end up working in another country afterwards, and it's probably going to be a number of places. So it's just being outside patriot of the place that you were born in to begin with. And I think these are the kind of people that are the easiest for me to connect with, that like being an expat allows for some space, and you can always travel back home or shift into the immigrant
undecided
status, or find another homeland, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
that sort of thing. And then I got cosmopolitans, and I think that is something I think of New Yorkers as, right? So I think of my French-speaking friends as cosmopolitans, because they are New Yorkers, but they're like from Paris or from somewhere in Switzerland, and they don't think of themselves as French people or Swiss folk. They just don't. But they also don't think of themselves as Americans. So what you're left with is New Yorker, right? And it's this one city that's got this whole, that's got this very, I want to say, complex fabric to it. And it's Cosmo, right? It's
like a set of traits that you're happy to acquire or happy to be sort of associated with, not the country, but like that particular city and whatever it brings, whatever it stands for.
Yeah, and you're open to like certain introductions into this set of characteristics, and it's not rigid. Again, like no one really knows what that means anymore. Like this type cosmopolitan, that type cosmopolitan. It's also supposed to shift a little bit. And then I got first generation Americans, so kind of like Dr. Mike, who you and I happen to be fans of. Well, he moved when he was a little boy, right? So he wasn't born into the United States. So technically, I mean, he's not really first generation. But in terms of where he grew up, that's kind of what
shaped
is.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where you are... like there's the space that is the immediate space that you're part of. Then there's a country that your parents came from, and they're like from a whole different world.
Yeah.
And then there's a term that I love to mention in talks like this. It's third space. So it's just like a space in between. So back to your question, are you like half Russian, half New Yorker, let's say? Or are you both all at once? And I think it's about navigating all those spaces and being sort of stuck in between for the most part, which, again, not as a negative connotation stuck, but you're not stationary. You're not stagnating. You're like, by no means.
I think it's really interesting. It's really important as well to talk about, things not being... stationary, as you say, because again, people who never had any international experience, for them, it's like I'm from a very small town, and when I was finishing school, a lot of people were moving to Moscow, St. Petersburg. It's that's the goal, and if you ever go there and try out, maybe you don't like it and you come back, it is seen as a failure. And it's kind of, but with time and with experience, you do understand that a full circle is very different from just standing in one point without moving anywhere. So what you're saying, and I think it is really important to generally talk about. So when, again, a lot of people without experience who say, you move abroad. First of all, there is a very, very sort of strong opinion that says you will never be like them, So, for example, when I moved abroad, I heard things like that, saying, why are you trying so hard? You will never be one of them. Well, first of all, it might be not somebody's goal to become one of them. And then it might seem to some that, if you're not anymore one of us. Again, this is a very interesting, sort of thing from psychological point of view, right? Yeah. Us versus them. You're not one of us anymore, and then you will never be one of them. So you're kind of like a lost person.
So
it's really sad. But what you're saying, I think it's a really nice example of it, that you create something of your own and you thrive in it.
I'm strongly opposed to the idea you're never going to be like them for so many reasons. First of all, you know what? If I want to be like them, what the heck ever, I can be like them. Like, I mean, it's a matter of what you want to be or not to be.
Yeah, and who's them? Who exactly?
Yeah, and the whole, us versus them, the othering yourself. Like, it kind of makes me think of this, like a heartbreaking episode of my life. I was doing a module on bilingualism and multilingualism at UCL. We probably were like in one the same building.
I love this part of the story because Keri and I, we actually went to the same university in London without knowing each other, but our buildings, we went to different sort of departments, but our buildings are actually like they are connected. They are one building. You can walk from one to the other, and there is a chance. And I imagine it as a film, you know, when they then roll back and we were walking the same corridors.
And what we had, like one of the professors, she had a bunch of moms come in whose kids were first generation, and they were born in London, whereas the moms, it was just the moms, no dads. Yeah, how sad. So, and they
That's
were
busy work
from someplace else. Yeah. So that'd be Brazil. I think there was someone from the Czech Republic. And I do remember the Czech person very well. She was sitting at our table, and the idea was to like ask them questions, right? So there was like a lecture, and they showed us some slides. They talked about their kids going to a Brazilian school on Sundays or a Czech school to learn Czech and to, you know, grow this system, ecosystem, linguist system that they can be part of, so that they talk in their first language and their second language, and they can decide on which one is their first and their second. And it's actually, again, they're a 3D person in both. And this person, the lady who was a mom to the Czech children, she said something about being embarrassed of, like, she'd never talk in English in front of her children because they would make fun of her. But I'm sure that they were just being kids, you know, and she actually found herself not wanting to, you know, extend this part of herself. Like, she was too fearful. She just found it too hard emotionally. We didn't go into it. There were like 5 more people, but I saw, like, I really wanted to like hug her and be like, you are going to talk in whichever language you're able to talk. You've been talking to us for a half hour. You sound great. You got to make that choice to grow that part of yourself. And not compare incessantly. That's like another thing that drives me mad. Like, what is it with us trying to come up with percentages? Well, not us. I don't think you and I do that anymore. But I like to think I never did. So I just let those parts of me, I don't know, fluctuate. And I do know for sure that there's domains of my life that I'm not living in Russian anymore. And that is just how it is. And I'm totally fine with it. And I know that back to the languages that I use every day, Russian is like a teeny portion of it, because Roman and I, we can go back and forth. I'm still, as a linguist, I'm always going to be into all my languages and all my cultures, right? Not in a political sense, but the more in-depth sense.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm still sort of holding on to it, like latching on to it, like don't go. So,
and you know what? And that's again, like sort of wrapping that all up. That's something that summarizes your journey. Something that is only, you know, like what I value in people also is patience. Hence the length of this chat.
I thought you were going to say you had certain professional choices. That's what we do, you guys. We tolerate each other. Teachers, we tolerate ourselves, tolerate immigrants, tolerate non-immigrants.
Exactly. When somebody is patient enough to actually get to know you, rather than to get to know you superficially and then place you in a particular box, then we can talk about something, you know, then it's maybe there is more chance, you know, for friendship. Then I don't know, maybe we can find more reasons to relate to each other and, I don't know, be friends, not just because we moved from the same country. You know, it's like, I think that's not complexity.
For sure.
Yeah. It's not just like, oh, a Russian immigrant into
Yeah.
such
It
and such
almost
country.
never is. That's the thing. It almost
No,
it's just that I think for
no.
that girl, it's the after war.
Yes, yeah, but then again, it's a particular,
they are a very particular group,
yes,
for sure, and
yeah.
that's who I think she's referring to.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Another interesting thing that people who live abroad talk about is their identity and the feeling, the understanding of where home is. There are lots of opinions about that. Let's listen to what Keri says about that. And last question that I wanted to ask you, what is home? What is home for you? Is it even important? Is it even important in the world of immigrants' identity? You said that you call New York home. That is like that's home. What is home?
I think I do know. It's just that I really wanted to make sure I that the note wasn't lost on me. I think what I wrote here is it's a good summary. It's well, home is your identity, and getting a chance to show it openly and share it with someone who understands it. So it's very
like that.
cultural.
Yeah, and I like that there is definitely sharing present. That's fantastic. And I would like to remind everyone that today I had lovely Keri with me. She is an accent coach. She works, but she doesn't just work with your voice and with sounds or intonation. She works with your substance, your existence, your journey, your dynamic self, to help you show it freely to the others and be more of you, whatever language you speak. If you decide to express more of your identity in a different language, what she does is absolutely amazing. So I will leave all the links below. Please make sure that you check her profiles out and show some love and support. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.